Hello, everyone, and welcome to Herosner Podcast, Season 2, Episode 20, History of Armenia in the 7th Century, Part 2. It's Thursday, June 16th, 2022. I'm your host, Vic and As always, I'm joined by my multi-talented co-host, Mr. Mike Balyan over here, sitting next to me, where we discuss our great Armenian history, covering different people, eras, and topics. Please share, like, and subscribe.
Please.
We want to get our YouTube subscription up. Obviously, our downloads with the podcast keeps going higher and higher. So thank you, everybody who is listening to us. All the emails and Instagram messages. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. Last episode.
That was fun.
That was a great episode.
Yeah, it was.
With Madeline Avetian, and interesting topic.
Very.
Yeah.
It's always a very, you could call it controversial, you could call it whatever you want. It's always a highly debatable topic.
It is. And we had a lot of people reach out to us about it, and interesting comments, and some people agreed, some people didn't, but you know what? That's what
people
it's
shouldn't
about,
get angry about that. Like people need to understand once they start looking into pre-Christian Armenian history, it shouldn't be like they're climbing over this wall.
Yeah.
This like infinitely high wall.
I agree.
I agree. It was a transition. Things changed.
Yeah. I think a lot of people tend to
happens to everybody.
A lot of people they're so attached to Christianity and they feel attacked, and that's not the case. As I personally always say, we want to know more about pre-Christianity of what happened, and everything. It's interesting.
Of course it is.
There's nothing wrong with,
you can ask the same questions if anybody has, if you want to critically think, you can ask the same questions about Islam, Buddhists, etc.
And we're going to talk about Islam.
I know.
Yeah,
I kind of sort of hinted at
episode. Mentions about our Patreon page. Thank you for everybody who's signing up. Madeline, we put so much pressure on her. She signed up.
Yeah, but that was an interesting surprise.
Yeah, I know, with her mom joining, and now Madeline is a Patreon, and she committed to $20 a month. She's in the King and Queens level. And then we have AZ who joined, and he's a warrior, $10 a month. Thank you, AZ.
Does that mean she needs to be fed grapes like?
The soldiers, the $5 ones.
Okay, got
so I want to mention something about it. That doesn't matter which level you commit to. As soon as we have enough patrons, we're gonna do private shows on Patreon. We're gonna have live Q&As. We're gonna post some funny videos of the outtakes that we have.
Oh boy,
a lot of cool stuff. So and if you do join, by the way, and this is to all the patrons who already signed up, you guys should have received an email. You do get to choose either we will send you a free mug or a T-shirt. So that's something as a thank you for joining us.
100%.
But besides that, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, please, we want to get that up. We want to hit at least 1,000 subscriber mark and then continue from there. But besides that, today's topic is a continuation from episode 18, which is part 2 of history in the 7th century. So we're going to continue with that. And Mike, you want to begin? Take it away.
All right. So in the beginning of the 7th century, we saw the rise of a new monotheistic name that is known as Islam. It began in the Arabian Peninsula by the Prophet Muhammad, and it soon enveloped much of the Near East, Central Asia, North Africa, and the Iberian Peninsula. The empire established by the Arabs was known as the Caliphate, term that we've all heard.
Yeah.
Or a territory which was under Islamic rule, headed by its supreme leader, the Caliph. While the importance of the Caliphate as a political power fluctuated throughout the history of Islam, the institution survived for over 1,000 years. Often acting as little more than a symbolic figurehead, the formal office of Caliph remained from the death of Muhammad in 632 until the Ottoman Caliphate was formally dismantled in 1924.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah, sure is.
During the medieval period, 3 major caliphates succeeded each other. The Rashidun Caliphate, which was 632 to 661, the Umayyad Caliphate, which was 661 to 750, and the Abbasid Caliphate, which was 750 to 1517. Again, that's a long time.
Yeah.
In the 4th major caliphate, the Ottoman Caliphate, the rulers of the Ottoman Empire claimed caliphal authority from 1517 and maintained Sunni Islam as the official religion. The first caliph, or caliph, was the father-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad, Abu Bakr, and last caliph was the Ottoman Sultan Abdul Majid II.
Yeah. Interesting, right?
Mm-hmm. All familiar names.
They are. They sure are. Now, Arab Muslims first attacked Sassanian territory in 633 when Khalid ibn al-Walid invaded Mesopotamia, then known as Sassanian province of Asoristan, or it's actually Asoristan.
Yeah, Asoristan.
It's the Syrians.
Syria. Yeah.
Roughly corresponding to modern-day Iraq, which is actually northern Iraq, I believe, which was a political and economic center of the Sassanian state. Following the transfer of Khalid to the Byzantine front in the Levant, the Muslims eventually lost their holdings to Sassanid counterattacks. The second Muslim invasion began in 633 under Sadibn Abi Waqas, when a key victory of the Battle of Qadisiyah led to the permanent end of the Sassanid control west of modern-day Iran.
Yeah, you need to brush up on your Arabic a little bit today.
Man, seriously. It's funny, when I was reading this, I wasn't having a hard time, but when the cameras go on...
It's all right, you got camera nerves.
For the next 6 years, the Zagros Mountains, a natural barrier, marked the border between the Rashidun Caliphate and the Sassanid Empire. In 642, Umar ibn al-Khattab, then Caliph of the Muslims, ordered a full-scale invasion of Persia by the Rashidun army, which led to the complete conquest of the Sassanid Empire by 651. Now, by 651, most of the urban centers in Iranian lands, with the notable exception of the Caspian province, this is Tabaristan and Transsohriana, I guess that's how you pronounce it, had come under the domination of Arab Muslim forces. Many localities fought against the invaders, although Arabs had established dominance over the most of the country, basically. Many cities rose in rebellion by killing their Arab governors or attacking their garrisons. Eventually, Arab military reinforcements quashed the Iranian insurgency and imposed complete Islamic control. The relatively quick and somewhat easy conquest of Iran by the Arabs was mainly due to the weakening of Sassanian Empire as a result of the prolonged Byzantine-Sassanian wars, as well as the civil war that plagued Iran after the overthrow and murder of Shah Khosrow II in 628. And we talked about this in the first part.
They weren't having a fun time for a few years there.
Yeah, there was a lot of drama going on back and forth.
I mean, talk about really weakening yourselves internally.
Of course, yeah.
What a perfect time to attack.
Yeah. The right place, right time, right?
Well, I mean, I'm sure they had information.
Of course.
Yeah.
However, the Islamization of Iran was gradual and incentivized in various ways over a period of centuries, with some Iranians never converting, still to this day, and maintaining their traditional Zoroastrian faith. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
However, during the Islamization of Iran, there were widespread cases of Zoroastrianism scriptures being burnt and priests being executed, particularly in areas that experienced violent resistance. However, the Persians began to reassert themselves by maintaining the Persian language and Iranian culture. Nevertheless, Islam would become the dominant religion in Iran by the late Middle Ages.
Yeah, you see, so it wasn't just Christianity being pushed onto, let's say, us or anybody. It was also Islam being shoved down the throats of whomever they took over.
Yeah. I'm curious to know the Iranians who are still practicing Zoroastrianism. I wonder if if it's a really tiny minority, or is it secretly practiced?
I used to know I forgot. I don't want to throw out numbers that I don't know, but I mean, I think it's over 90% of Iran. I might be wrong, so guys, don't skewer me on this. That's Islam, full Islam, but of course, Shiite and Sunni being the majority of the split, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't know. It would be interesting to look into to see if like there's people that officially are Zoroastrian.
Yeah. No, I think that'd be interesting. And I wonder if there's Iranians who, obviously, if they dabble into their own history and find out, like,
Of course they do. I don't know. I
in
know
the sense of like, if they,
strict
know how
country.
us Armenians or most of us who are interested pre-Christian,
Mm-hmm.
we want to learn more about who we were and everything.
No, I
that
think
took
it's
place.
vital. I think it's very vital to learn
And I
more.
wonder if they do that because, it's a big deal.
Of course. The calendar didn't start in 301 AD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Arabs were also able to conquer the Byzantine provinces of Syria, Palestine, and Egypt, thus not only firmly entrenching themselves in the eastern Mediterranean Sea basin, but also throughout northern Africa and the Iberian Peninsula. According to the Arabic sources, the first Arab expedition reached Armenia in 639 or 640 AD, during the conquest of the Levant from the Byzantines and the start of the Muslim conquest of Persia. The Arabs were led by Liad ibn Ghanim and reached as far as the Armenian town of Baresh. In 640, spot up at Theodore Rushtuni, alongside the Byzantine general Procopius, led the defense of Armenia against the first unsuccessful Arab attack. That means there are more.
Yeah.
A second expedition occurred in 642, not too far after, only to be once again defeated and pushed out of the country by Theodore Rushtuni. After the setback, the Arabs only undertook a raid from Atropatene in 645, led by Salman ibn Rabia, but they only reached the Armenian frontier. Byzantine Emperor Constans II followed the advice of Armenian Catholicus Nerses III, made Theodore commander-in-chief of the Armenian troops, and gave him the title of Patrikios. For his victories over the Arabs, Theodore was recognized as the ruler of Armenia by Constans in 643, but failed to coordinate his actions with a second army under General Procopius, who suffered a severe defeat for which the Byzantine general put the blame on Theodore. Catholic, yeah. Of course, they gotta.
There's that popcorn again.
They've got to blame somebody.
Yeah.
Catholicus Nerses III, who reigned from 641 to 661 AD, favored a closer union by the Byzantine Orthodox Church and had notified Constans II that he would work towards bringing the two churches close together. More politics.
Mm-hmm.
Nerses III also became known as and I quote, the builder, due to the fact that from 643 to 652, he ordered the erection of one of the greatest Armenian cathedrals, the Zvartnots Cathedral, which literally meant the Cathedral of Celestial Angels, and centrally planned aisled tetraconch type Armenian cathedral located at the edge of the city of Vagarshapad in Armavir province of Armenia.
Interesting, right?
Yeah. More, to celebrate the political union.
Yeah.
One must build
a church.
A massive one.
A massive one.
Yes.
So, notably, the Zvartnots Cathedral was built as at somewhat turbulent time when the first Arab raids began to reach Armenia. The cathedral was dedicated to Saint Gregory and was located at the place where, according to tradition, a meeting between King Tertat III and Saint Gregory the Illuminator was supposed to have taken place. Interesting. I wonder where they got that information from.
Mm-hmm.
According to the medieval Armenian historian Movses Karangatsvatsi, man, there's can you
Karangavatsi.
No, I know that, but just look at how it's written. Karangavatsi.
Yeah.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
The cathedral was consecrated in 652. From 653 to 659, Catholicos Nerses was in Taik, and the construction of the cathedral continued under Catholicos Anastas Akoratsi. Following the Arab occupation of Divin and the intensifying wars between the Byzantine and the Arab armies forced Nerses to transfer the patriarchal palace of the Catholicos from the captive Divin to Zvartnots.
Escape. The Zvartnots Cathedral stood for 320 years before its collapse in the 10th century. By the time the 11th century historian Stepanos Staronatsi wrote of the church, it was already in ruins, without explaining how it was destroyed. How it collapsed is still debated, though most scholars argue for one of the two main theories. It was destroyed as a result of an earthquake, which is logical thinking considering the region, or as a result of Arab raids, which also is a logical argument considering the region.
Yeah.
The most common explanation is the earthquake, though the building was well engineered and designed to last 1,000 years. Who makes it will last 1,000 years?
Well, no, I mean, it's. If you think
I know,
about
but
it,
like,
the oldest churches that are standing, they're over 1,000 years old.
was that their plan? Like,
No, but the way they built it.
like it came
Well-
with a 1,000-year guarantee.
No, but I guess the way they fortified it, I guess. But
Maybe.
read on. It actually
Interesting.
talks about it.
Interesting projected date
Yeah.
for the second coming of Christ. Excavations have uncovered.
There you go. Just
There is your answer.
there's your answer.
This is where you sign, okay? It will last 1,000 years. Excavations have uncovered traces of large files at the site, perhaps of an earlier attempt to destroy the church, though the construction also included firing of obsidian and lime mortar to form the mortar joints. That's a pretty cool combination.
Yeah.
Firing it into brick. And the 1893 excavation also used fire and explosives to clear debris. A close copy of the breathtaking triple-tier Zvartnots Cathedral was erected at Ani by Tărtad the architect under the reign of Gagik I Bagratuni during the final decade of the 10th century. That's a really interesting combination.
Yeah.
I remember when I was reading this, I was thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, what would mortar with what? Obsidian and lime.
Interesting, right? Talk about chemistry.
But obsidian stones, I mean, we've all seen what obsidian looks like.
Yeah.
Like I'm
They knew
curious
something, man.
I'm curious what
actually
that would
heard of-
look like, man.
I've heard of that. They also mixed like egg yolk.
A lot
almost-
of chickens.
No, I'm serious. Like, it's a lot of chickens if you think about it. But I've heard of that they would mix egg yolk with the sand, and then that was supposed to like almost work like cement,
Like some sort of adhesive.
yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah. Now the Arabic sources, most notable Al-Tabari, Yaqubi, and I apologize, I'm butchering all these names, but Al-Baladuri placed the supposed conquest of Armenia around 645 to 646 under the command of Habib ibn Maslama al-Firi.
Wow.
There you
Way
go.
to go, buddy.
Thank you. According to these sources, the Arab armies first moved against the western Byzantine portion of the country, captured Karain before subduing the Armenian princess of Vaspurakan and marched on to the capital Divin, which capitulated after the siege, as did Tiflis further north in Iberia. During the same time, another Arab army from Iraq under Salam ibn Rabia, or is it Rabia, conquered the Caucasian Albanian, also known as Iran.
Oh, they were going pretty far north.
Yeah, I mean that is pretty north,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, it's past the Caucasus Mountains.
Yeah.
Almost.
Although Arab sources imply that Armenia was henceforth effectively under Arab rule, modern historians generally consider the contemporary accounts of the 7th century Armenian historian Sibius and the 8th century Armenian historian Gevond, partly corroborated by the early 9th century Byzantine chronicle Theophanes. Theophanes, the confessor, more reliable, and have proposed different reconstruction of the early Arab raids between 640 and 650 based on the critical reading of the sources. It is clear that the country did not submit to Arab rule at this time and was only fully conquered by the Caliphate in the year 700. Even after that, Armenia maintained a high level of autonomy, and Armenian Nakharas periodically continued to raise the banner of national liberation. Their efforts finally bore fruit in the 9th century with the restoration of the Kingdom of Armenia.
Theophanes the Confessor.
Yeah.
The Confessor.
The Confessor.
That's such an interesting...
First, I was tripping on his name, and then
then
he was the Confessor.
The Confessor. So what did he confess?
He was a chronicler.
Okay, but like the Confessor.
I guess he saw everything that happened.
I'm curious. I've got
First, he kept it as a secret.
As a secret. See, this is the point I'm trying to get to. So like, what was he hiding?
And then they beat it out of him, and he confessed.
I mean, look, I'm not making fun of the guy, but kind of making the fact that he's the Confessor.
Yeah. Maybe it meant something else back
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Like a title, the Confessor.
He's
just the Confessor.
It makes it sound like he was kind of like a sniveling liar, or like you said, kept secrets, and then all of a sudden, it's like, I just gotta talk.
Yeah,
gotta let it out. I don't know, man.
All right.
Anyway, sorry.
Continue.
Goofy mode. Time to move on. Armenian primary sources reported that the Arabs first arrived in Armenia in 642, penetrating the central region of Ayrarat and sacked Devin, returning with over 35,000 captives.
That's a lot of people.
Devin's been through a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all the episodes, it feels like we mentioned that.
Now, are these the 35,000 captives that we've heard that they took to Iran? And that's how, like, the Armenian community kind of...
Yeah, it sounds like the same time frame.
Yeah.
Right? But, dude, that city just was pummeled. Back and forth. Built, pummeled, rebuilt. But anyway, in 643, the Arabs invaded again from the direction of Albania, ravaged Ayrarat, and reached Iberia, but were defeated in a battle by the Armenian forces of Sparapet Theodore Rushtuni and were forced back. After this important success, Rushtuni was recognized as the ruler of Armenia by the Byzantine Emperor Constans II, as we had spoken earlier.
Yeah.
In exchange for accepting Byzantine suzerainty, in 651 AD, Theodore Rushtuni scored another victory against the Arabs. In 654, the Arabs also recognized Theodore Rushtuni as the presiding prince of Armenia, Iberia, and Albania, collectively referring to these kingdoms as the land of Armenia.
Interesting,
That is to say, the Arabs also recognized the fact that Iberia and Albania were politically and culturally parts of Armenia's sphere of influence.
Yeah.
Interesting. So they kind of assumed that this is kind of all the same area, more or less, right?
Maybe we should go back to those maps.
Yeah. I'm okay with this. Just give us all the maps.
Yeah.
Combine them together. However, Theodore Rushtuni's collaboration with the Arabs was viewed negatively by Emperor Constans II. Why? Interesting. Emperor Constans, himself of Armenian extraction and member of the great Heraclian dynasty of the Byzantine Empire, paid special attention to his family's imperiled homeland of Armenia and favored Byzantine generals of Armenian extraction to halt Arab advances.
There you go. You just got your answer.
Yeah.
He was more...
Ask and you shall receive.
Yeah. I think, he was more of a patriot than anything.
Yes, of course he was. Faced with the impending loss of Armenia, he personally led his troops and marched and spent the winter of 652 and 653 at the Armenian capital of Devin and returned to Constantinople the next year after leaving an army in place.
So, again, going back to that, Constant II, he was, because of he had Armenian bloodline.
Yeah.
And from, we've talked about this in the not the last episode, but part 1, and even in the 6th century.
Yeah.
A lot of the generals, a lot of the leaders, they were of Armenian descent, even though it was in the Byzantine Empire. So maybe he was kind of like offended by it, by the fact that, hey, what are you doing? That's the enemy. That's his enemy. And it is, in theory, it was Armenia's enemy too.
Yeah, but it could have been, he could have been onto something. Maybe it was setting up for a trap. Maybe it was some sort of deal that he was going to take that maybe he shouldn't have, or whatnot. I don't know. I'm just speculating at this point.
Find out. In 653, Sparapet Theodore Rushtuni withdrew to the island of Akhtamar of Lake Van. This was due to the fact that the house of Rushtuni until the 9th century had as its fief the county of Rushtunik, named after the Nakharar house, which was one of the counties of the Vaspurakan province of Armenia, encompassing the area on the southern coast of Lake Van, which was also referred to as Rushtunians, Zov, or Sea of Rushtunik, and included the Akhtamar Island. In medieval times, Rushtunik County contained numerous churches and monasteries, which functioned as centers of learning and art. One of the most famous of these was Narekavank, which was demolished by the Turkish government after the Armenian genocide. It was here that Saint Gregory of Narek lived and composed his magnum opus, the Book of the Lamentations, and major piece of medieval world literature. The island of Akhtamar became famous after King Gagik Artruni of the Kingdom of Vaspurakan between 915-921 ordered the famous Armenian architect Monvel to erect the beautiful Church of the Holy Cross, which was adorned with intricate reliefs and breathtaking frescoes, and was built as a Palatine church for the kings of Vaspurakan and later served as the seat of the Catholicate of Akhtamar.
Very interesting story about Akhtamar and its history, right? A lot of stuff I learned even in that little paragraph. But what's interesting is the Rushtunis, they decided to call it Rushtunyattsov.
Yeah.
Or in English, the Sea of Rushtuni. Yeah, it's like, I am king, I shall rename the sea.
Well, those are the perks of being a king.
Right? I mean, yeah. So basically, it was called Lake Van before, and then would that be they changed the name or they just made a new reference?
Maybe I think it's more of a new reference because everybody knows it as Lake
Van. Right. I'd be curious to find out now.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the Arabs had promised to help support Theodore Rushtuni's rule, and in order to drive the forces of Emperor Constans in 654, sent an Arab force to fight along Theodore. The Sparapet scored a number of victories. However, by this time, Theodore, who was around 65 years old, experienced ill health and was unable to continue to personally lead his forces into the battle. In 656 AD, Theodore decided to pass the mantle to his son-in-law, Hamazas Mamikonyan. I swear we should have like a cowbell every time their name is mentioned or something. Or like a drinking game or something. Every time a Mamikonyan.
You know what? We should. Hey, to the audience, new drinking game. Every time you hear the
every
last
time
name
somebody at the table mentions Mamikonyan last name, dude,
take a shot.
That would be bad if the current family's surname was Mamikonyan right now.
Why?
I mean, everybody would get drunk if they followed these rules.
Well, no, I'm talking about when we.
I know, but
when
what if there's families out there whose last name is Mamikonyan?
But what does that have to do with our game?
I'm just saying. Like,
I'm saying
we might have people that are listening to us.
Okay, so I'm saying every time we mention Mamikonyan.
Oh no, we need to bring in a cowbell. We should.
Listen to me.
I know, but it'll be fun. We should have a shot. I'm down.
No, oh my God.
And so should our audience.
Wow. The game is every time we are doing an episode and people are listening or watching, you hear the last name Mamikonyan, you take a shot.
What? Okay, let's say they're driving.
Don't take a shot when you're driving.
Is that an IOU?
Yeah, you just count how many times, go home and take shots.
Oh, this is going to be bad, man. This can be a liability.
Oh my God.
Anyway, it's not our fault. This is the disclaimer. This is not our fault. Okay?
It's a fun game.
It is. It's fun. We should do it here.
It doesn't have to be a shot of alcohol. I mean, it could be anything.
So, who as, Hamazas Mamikonyan, who as the Prince of Armenia became the new de facto leader of the nation. Theodore decided to go to Damascus to conduct diplomatic talks with Muawiya the First. Sorry if I butchered that one. The founder of the new Umayyad Caliphate, but died there soon after. Various historians have placed the death of Theodore Rushtuni between 656 to 659 AD.
3 years.
Maybe there wasn't any solid documentation or whatnot to point to it.
Okay, I'll take it.
sold to the highest bidder. The Sparapet's body was brought back to Armenia and honorably buried in the pantheon of the Rushtuni princes in Rushtunik County. In 661, Hamazas Mamikonian, where's the bell? Where's the bell? Where's the bell? Was in turn succeeded by Gregory Mamikonian, who ruled Armenia as its prince for the next 2 decades. Gregory had greatly revived the land of Armenia, ravaged by virtually ceaseless wars. Of course, because we were always this theater of wars.
Yeah.
From 661 to 682, Gregory, with his wife Herine, erected the Archavank. I read that right. Yeah. Archavank, or the Cathedral of Aruch, situated on the rocky plateau of the western foot of Mount Aragats, in the village of Aruch in the Aragtsotan province of Armenia. The Cathedral of Aruch became one of the most important Armenian churches of the Middle Ages. Gregory died on the battlefield around 682 while repelling the nomadic Khazar tribes, who had attacked Armenia from the north. He was succeeded by Ashot Bakraduni, the grandson of Varastirots Bakraduni, who became the new prince of Armenia and ruled it until 685.
It's funny how they're announced as prince, not a king.
Well,
like they wouldn't recognize him as a king.
Actually, when I read this particular portion of the article, I'd like to look more into the Khazars.
Okay.
That's an interesting, because we haven't really talked about them, and they're from the north.
Yeah.
They're basically what are in like modern day Ukraine, and they've been there for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So there are people that have been there for a long time, and I know that just from my own like historical knowledge. That's interesting that they were involved with them at the 7th century.
So not the Khazars,
It'd
be considered
because the Khazarians,
yeah.
In
But
English,
are
they were the Khazarians.
But are they of? Would you say they're the descendants of?
It goes way back to biblical times.
Biblical times.
Yeah. This goes way back to biblical times.
So
I mean,
are you saying Ukrainians are related to them? Because then there would be the Russians involved as well, right?
Maybe-ish. I mean, it goes way deeper than this. This goes like really far back.
Okay.
Really far back, according to the stuff that I've researched and read. But that's interesting. I personally want to look into this to see what kind of involvement in terms of opposite ends they had with the Armenians in this time period.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Now, for the most of the second half of the 7th century, Arab presence and control of Armenia was minimal. Armenia continued to enjoy de facto autonomy, regulated by the Treaty of 653 signed between Theodore Rushtuni and Maiwa I. According to the terms of the treaty, the Armenian princes were subject to relatively low taxation and the obligation to provide soldiers when requested, for which the princes were to be paid an annual subsidy of 100,000 dirhams. Dirhams, not drums. Dirhams.
But that sounds very
dirham,
similar.
yeah. Well, I mean, if you go back to the actual word, dirham was, dirham came from the word dirham. So, in exchange, no Arab garrison or official was installed in Armenian lands, and Arab assistance was even promised in the event of an attack by a hostile army. It was a two-way agreement. However, by the closing of the 7th century, the political reality in both the Byzantine Empire and especially in the Umayyad Caliphate had changed. Mawai I was succeeded by Abd al-Mali, who ruled from 685 to 705. 685 also saw a change in leadership in the Byzantine Empire as well as in Armenia. The new emperor became Emperor Justinian II, who reigned from 685 to 695 and again from 705 to 711, while in 685 Gregory Mamikonian was succeeded by Nerse Kamsarakan, who became the new Prince of Armenia. In 688, Justinian II, in pursuit of his strong religious zealotry, sent an army into Armenia in order to establish complete domination of Armenia by taking it from the Arabs and by bringing it into communion the Armenian and Byzantine churches. Caliph Abd al-Mali was busy in fighting against his rivals who wanted to overthrow him. Thus, in 689, he sued for peace and recognized Byzantine authority over Armenia. That year, Justinian II restored Ashot Bagratuni as the Prince of Armenia.
Times two. Yeah.
Interesting, right? I mean,
Very. It always is.
that kind of worked out for Justinian and Armenia. The fact that, they were caught up with their own turmoil, and he was willing to be like, I can't deal with this crap right now. There you go.
But you know what the best part is? And I mean, look, it makes sense. Subsidies and tax cuts only if you provide us living beings as soldiers.
Well, when they needed them.
When they needed them.
But the funny thing is, if the Arabs were fighting the Byzantine, you had Armenian soldiers fighting the Byzantine that had Armenian soldiers there as well. So you had two of the same people fighting one another.
I wonder if that was a agenda.
But I wonder, can you imagine on the battlefield? Picture that nowadays. Let's say you are split. Do you think they would actually...
And I ain't killing another Armenian if I find
that's what I'm saying.
Like, dude, Akbar.
No, but I'll tell you one thing. Again, and I don't know. I could be wrong about this, but that sense of an Armenian never kills an Armenian, I think got stronger after the genocide.
But how do
back then? Do you think that was the case?
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know, but what would it be?
Were they brainwashed from both sides? Where they saw each other not as Armenians, but as
though? Like how would you know? Like was it something that, let's say, you looked at somebody's face and you're like, okay, this guy's got to be, before I actually stab him with my spear, because he's coming at me. Like, whoa, man, hope stop.
Yeah. Well, how would they also differentiate each other? If
that's what I'm saying. Like, how would you know? Unless they were informed. God, there's too many angles to approach this with. Way too many angles.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Anyway, the Caliphate was not willing to simply let go of Armenia and the neighboring lands of the Byzantines. In 692, an Arab army entered eastern Armenia from the territory of Atropatene. Armenian towns of Gharam, Jura, and Hoshagunik were quickly overrun. Ashot Bagratuni led his army and was able to score a decisive victory against the Caliphate's raiders. However, the Arabs used a clever trick. While retreating from the battlefield, the raiders dropped some of the looted treasures, sniveling bastards, on the field, and many of Ashot's soldiers did not follow their commander's orders of pursuing the enemy and instead stopped to collect gold coins. Only a small portion of Ashot's forces, along with their commander, continued to pursue the Arab contingent. You greedy.
Hey. ... Rough times. You can't,
After seeing that their ploy had worked, the Arabs quickly turned around and assaulted Ashot and his now much smaller force. Most of the Armenian cavaliers, who had stopped to collect the treasures, after realizing what had taken place quickly, galloped to reinforce Ashot and finish off the raiders. Well, at least they came to their senses. It's like, hold on, I need to get some more coins. I'll be right there.
They're running with coins falling out.
Yeah, it's like they just got like 80 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
The much larger Armenian reinforcements destroyed the raiding party. However, by this time, Ashot Bagratuni and his small force was surrounded and virtually wiped out in hand-to-hand combat.
Oh, man. Not good. That sucks.
Yeah. It's like, were you trying to protect the gold that you scrounged up between the couch cushions? I don't know. Ashot had sustained mortal wounds and was taken by his men to the Darwink, where he shortly thereafter passed away.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, all because of
greed.
I mean, listen, you got to give it to the raiders, the fact that it's a chance, right?
Yeah.
They threw it. They're like, hey, let's see what happens.
Yeah, go ahead. Like, sprinkle the gold all over the place. Let's see what they do.
Unfortunately, some of these...
Because at that point, if you kill them, you take it back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just at that moment, they didn't calculate right. After Ashot Bagratuni's death in 692, Nerse Kamsarakan once again became the leader of Armenia and ruled it until 695. Nerse Kamsarakan is remembered for the erection of the Cathedral of Tallinn. The Prince of Armenia left an inscription on the Church of Saint Mary of Tallinn, which reads,
Okay.
like you want to take it away?
Yeah, I'm going to put on my best Nerse
I know you
Kamsarakan
wanted to read
impression.
this part, so.
I, Nerse, the patrician proconsul, Lord of Shirak and Arsharunik, built this church in the name of the Holy Mother of God for her intercession for me and my wife Shushan and my son Harahat.
Wow. Really felt like him.
Yeah. Yeah, I just went into my Nerse moment right there.
Yeah, awesome. Members of, from now on, you're doing all of these.
Sure.
Members of Kamsarakan House were known to be patrons of art and science. Nerse Kamsarakan, in line with this tradition, was the patron of the outstanding scientist Anania Shirakatsi, the 7th century Armenian polymath and natural philosopher, author of extant works covering mathematics, astronomy, geography, chronology, and other fields.
Dude, he must have had a lot of time on his hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, no cell phones, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
what we want to do is we want to cover briefly about his life, about Anania, because it was an amazing, philosopher,
Yeah, what he
author,
did.
the works that he
Mhm.
did. So we're going to right now just shortly concentrate on what he did. So this is about Anania Shirakatsi, who was born sometime around 610 and lived until around the end of the 7th century. Anania is the only classical Armenian scholar to have written an autobiography.
Mm.
Interesting. It was probably written as the preface to one of his scholarly works, possibly of Canican. He was the son of John and was born either in the village of Ania or Aniank, or in the town of Shirakavan, or in the county of Shirak, in the central Armenian province of Ararat. The name of the village, Aniank, may also be connected to the latter city of Ani, which in the 10th century became the Bagratuni capital of Armenia.
yes.
Mhm.
So Anania probably came from a noble family. I mean, you had to be. I mean, it's
To be given all
to
that
be,
time.
all that education and whatnot. It
Yeah.
was kind of a common theme whenever you kind of study history with a
Yeah.
lot of noble families and whatnot.
Agreed.
Since his name is sometimes spelled as Shirakuni, Anania received his early education at the local Armenian schools, possibly at the Prevank Monastery, where he studied sacred texts and earlier Armenian authors. Anania first traveled to Karin, then to the Byzantine-controlled province of 4th Armenia. Remember, we've talked
Yeah.
about 9th, 10th, 11th, 15th Armenia, whatever it was that they split it up into, where he studied under Christosatur for 6 months. Gotta look into that guy. Wonder who he was. He has to bear some sort of significance, right?
Mm-hmm.
He then left to find a better teacher and learned about Tychicus, who was based at the monastery of Saint Eugenius of Trebizond. Trebizond. I wonder if that's the current city of Trabzon, northern Turkey.
But I want to find out about Tychicus.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some people here that sound pretty interesting.
Is it
Um,
Tychicus or Tychicus?
Tychicus.
Weird
whatever.
spelling.
Anania devoted a significant part of his autobiography to Tychicus, who was born in circa 560, with whom he spent 8 years in the 620s to the 630s. Tychicus, or Tychicus, however you want to pronounce it, had studied the Armenian language and its literature while serving in the Byzantine army in Armenia.
Mm.
Wounded by the Persians, he retired from the military and later studied in Alexandria, Rome, and Constantinople, 3 very well-known cities. Tychicus later returned to his native Trebizond, where he established a school around 615 AD. Tychicus taught many students from Constantinople, including from the imperial court, and was renowned amongst Byzantine kings.
Yeah.
He provided Anania special attention and taught him
what Anania called a, and I quote, perfect knowledge of mathematics. In Tychicus's large library, Anania found sacred and secular Greek authors, including works on the sciences, medicine, chronology, and history.
Yeah.
This guy looks like he devoted his life to education, right?
Yep.
Anania himself established a school in Armenia upon his return. In that school, Shirakatsi taught courses on arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. The 12th century Armenian chronicler Samvel of Ani listed 5 of Shirakatsi's students who are otherwise unknown. Okay. Anania financed his research in several fields with the money he earned teaching.
I gotta say, I mean, first,
Sounds like a fascinating, interesting.
Tychicus, who obviously devoted so much of his time to, educate Anania, but man, to be able to, teach so many different, it's not one thing. It's not like he was concentrating on one thing.
Yeah.
It's so many different ones. You gotta give it to the guy, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the guy was well-versed in all sorts of different disciplines.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
mean, like I said, he sounds like he dedicated his life to just educating himself and educating others.
No, but, most people dedicate their life to one
discipline.
subject, or what it is.
Guy
right?
was a jack of all trades and a master of none.
Yeah, but I mean,
or maybe he was a master of all of it.
Yeah. So, Anania Shirakatsi composed science textbooks and geographic work in classical Armenian known as the Ashkaratsuits, which provides detailed information about the provinces, counties, and settlements of Greater Armenia, Lesser Armenia, Persia, and the Caucasus, Iberia, and Albania. In mathematics, Anania's accomplishments include the earliest known table of results of the 4 basic operation, the earliest known collection of recreational math puzzles and problems, and the earliest book of math problems in Armenian. Interesting, right? He also devised a system of mathematical notation based on the Armenian alphabet, although he was the only writer known to have used it. Anania accepted the importance of experience, observation, rational practice, and theory, and was influenced by the ideas of the 5th century Armenian philosopher David the Invincible. That's another name we definitely want to look into and learn about him, maybe even do an episode.
David the Invincible.
Yeah. Anania Shirakatsi advocated rationalism in studying nature and attacked superstitious beliefs and astrology as the babbling of the foolish. He adopted the classical theory of 4 elements, which considered all matter to be composed of 4 elements: fire, air, water, and earth. He believed that while God directly created these elements, he did not interfere with the natural course of development of things. Smart guy.
Yes.
He asserted that the creation, existence, and decay of natural bodies and the phenomena occurred through the union of these elements without the interference of God. Both living and non-living matter came into existence from the synthesis of the elements. Anania accepted that the earth is round, described it as like an egg of the spherical yolk, the globe, I guess, right? Surrounded by a layer of white, the atmosphere, and covered it with the shell, the sky. He accurately explained solar and lunar eclipses, the phases of the moon, and the structure of the Milky Way. Described the latter as a mass of dense but faintly luminous stars. Anania also correctly attributed tides to the influence of the moon. He described the Tempest sphere as the ether, the source of light and heat through the sun.
Very interesting.
Man, I mean,
very
interesting. Look at this.
I've read a lot about the ether, and that's interesting that like back then this guy was.
Did you know anything about? Have you ever heard of his name?
Nope.
Like,
none.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is
Nothing.
wow.
But it goes on.
Yeah.
Anania was a polymath and a natural philosopher. Anania was primarily devoted to mathematics, which he considered the mother of all knowledge. His mathematical books were used as textbooks in Armenia Of Anania's several mathematical works, the most important is the Book of Arithmetic, Hamarogutun or Davabanutun, a comprehensive collection of tables on the 4 basic operations.
Yeah.
The operations reach up to a total of 80 million, which is the highest number. A possible theoretical part is believed lost. About 40 works in various disciplines have been attributed to Anania, but only half are extant. They include studies in mathematics, astronomy, cosmology, geography, chronology, and meteorology.
Wow.
The dude was a weatherman too.
Yeah.
Many of his works are believed to have been part of Ganikon, used as the standard science textbook in medieval Armenia. Modern scholars have praised Anania's writing as concise, simple, and to the point, retaining the reader's attention and citing examples to illustrate his point. I mean,
Interesting.
this is very impressive.
Yeah.
Sounds like the Einstein of back then, huh?
Yeah.
For his mathematical works, Anania developed a unique numerical notation based on 12 letters of the Armenian alphabet. For the units, he used the first 9 letters of the Armenian script, A, B, G, D, Y, Z, E, A, T, similar to the standard traditional Armenian numerical system. The letters used for 10, 100, and 1000, which is basically like, the metric system, right?
Yeah.
Multiples of 10, were also identical to the traditional Armenian system, zh, z, r, but all other numbers up to 10,000 were written using these 12 letters. It's
Yeah.
just like the Roman numerical
Yep.
system,
Yep.
right? For instance, 50 would be written as zh, 5 times 10, and not z,
Yeah.
as in the standard system. Thus, the notation is multiplicative, additive, as opposed to the ciphered additive standard system, and requires knowledge or knowing the 12 letters instead of 36
Yeah.
to write numbers less than 10,000. Very interesting.
Yep.
Numbers greater than that could be written using multiplicative combinations of just 2 or 3 signs, but using all 36 letters. Stephen Chrysomalis believes this system was created by Anania since it only occurs in his works and not found in Greek, Syriac, and Hebrew, or any other alphabetical numerical system. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. That's pretty intense.
That is. Just, I mean, he was something else.
Yeah,
man.
that's
I am
very
so impressed.
intense.
I'm so impressed. I'm actually, the fact that I've never heard of his name and didn't know anything about him. Right now, I'm
Blown away.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Now, one of Anania's most significant work is cosmology, the Ezra Gitutun. It covers the sun, the moon, celestial sphere, constellations, the Milky Way, and the meteorological changes. In 667, Anania was invited by Catholicos Anstas I of Akori, reigned from 661 to 662, and then to 667, to the Armenian Apostolic Church's central seat at Devin to establish a fixed calendar of the movable and immovable feasts of the Armenian Apostolic Church. Interesting, right? The result was a perpetual calendar based on a 532-year cycle, combining the solar cycles and the lunar cycle, since they coincided every 532 years. Wow. Ananias' calendar was never implemented by the Armenian Church, according to the 10th century Armenian historian Hovannes Darskhanakaretsi. That's a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
Catholicos Anastas's death prevented the Armenian Apostolic Church Council from ratifying and adopting Shirakatzi's calendar. That sucks.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into how calendars work. There's some really interesting things if you ever look into how the Julian calendar was formed or accepted, and then later on the Gregorian calendar, which is what we live by today.
Yeah.
Very, very egotistical human beings in the quote unquote church at some point, or some sort of clergymen were the ones who accepted it.
Yeah.
And
well, in his case, it's because of Anastas's death.
yeah, but I mean,
like,
this man put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
Right. So, what was he supposed to do? Pitch it to the Catholic Church and be like, "Please accept this."
Well, the guy
Or
who
to
came next probably,
um,
didn't appreciate what he was doing.
at this
didn't
point.
understand it.
At this point, they were, I believe, according to modern day doctrine, they were going off of the Julian calendar, because the Gregorian calendar wasn't accepted, I believe, until the 15th century. Was it the 16th century? That's when things changed. But they were going off of the Julian calendar, which is Julius Caesar.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, by the end of the 7th century, the Caliphate was able to tighten its grip throughout Armenia. After 700, the Caliphate's Armenia province, encompassing not only Armenia, but also Iberia and Albania, was formed. The capital of Armenia remained the city of Devin, even after all that damage. In the late 7th century, Nersek Amsarakan was succeeded by Sambat Bagratuni III as the Prince of Armenia. Sambat ruled semi-autonomous Armenia with the jurisdiction of the Caliphate until 726. The raising of the taxes and overall more repressive policies of the Caliphate in the 8th century were greatly resented by the Nakharars and the general populace. Thus, it is not surprising that throughout the 8th century, a number of Armenian revolts broke out against the Caliphate's rule. Good for them.
Yeah.
Although these revolts were not successful, they kept the spark of the national liberation struggle alive and led to the events that restored Armenian independence in the 9th century. Turbulent times.
Yeah. A lot more coming up. We will cover the history of Armenia in the 8th and 9th centuries, which includes the chronological of these momentous events in our future episodes. So make sure you stay tuned, subscribe, and we want to thank everyone for being part of this great journey as together we learn more about the history, heritage, and culture of Armenia and the Armenian people. We're only into the 7th century, so we have a lot to go.
We've got another 1,400 years to go.
Fiery whisper.
I don't know. Making it a big secret.
All right. Are you the confessor?
No, I want to be. Wait, what was the other guy's name? It sounded better. The Invincible.
David the Invincible.
Yes.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. I want to learn about him. I really do.
The Invincible, and then you have the Confessor.
Yeah.
Did the Invincible make him confess?
Possibly. Or the confessor made him invincible.
Touche.
Excuse me. So, anyways, so that's it as far as part 2 of the, Armenian history and in the 7th century, I should say, not just Armenian history.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was interesting. I like that whole part about
Anania.
I'm actually gonna
Very curious about this now.
Do a little bit more research about him and learn. Maybe if there's more information about it, we can do an actual episode, because obviously that was just cut down to like boom, 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 like the bullet points of what he did.
The calendar thing really gets me.
Yeah.
Is because personally, I've looked
in David the Invincible.
Yeah.
I want to learn about.
Yeah, I've looked like I was mentioning earlier. I've looked into the difference between the Julian calendar and then eventually when the Gregorian calendar was accepted. If this guy sounds like he had something based off of the sun's and moon's cycles basically converging 532 years at a time, he's got to be onto something, even to modern day. Like, what's changed?
Yeah.
We all look up at the sky.
If our audience, if you know anything about Anania, like I said, I didn't know anything about Anania. What we're reading is so interesting, and I really couldn't wait to share it with everybody. And I if you know anything about David Invincible, reach out to us. Let us know. Or I want to ask the question: did you guys know anything about Anania? Or
definitely not about the confessor.
The confessor. We don't like the confessor. But that's pretty much it.
This was good.
Yeah, it was good.
Moving on to the 8th and 9th centuries.
8th and 9th.
Where it starts getting really good.
Yeah. if by any chance we don't have a live guest next week, like I said, we're with us. It's just waiting for people to confirm. If we have a live guest, then great, and we'll do a live show. If not, we will continue with the 8th and 9th century coming up with the next episode. I don't know if it'll be next week or the week of that. We need some time to prepare. But anything else we need to mention?
No.
Nothing else coming up.
Andronic statues are up. They're in.
They're in.
Yeah.
We're waiting for the boxes, by the way, guys.
Yeah,
Those of you who've been asking, the boxes are delayed. Unfortunately, we need the boxes to register it. So those of you, some people have asked, can you ship it without the boxes? And we have done it. So if you have an order of the Andronic box, and we send out an email to everybody, and they haven't responded, but if you want it ahead of time and you don't care for the box, we want you to have the box because that's where all the registration
We can accommodate it.
codes and everything is for the sculpture to be registered to your name with its number. So, let us know. Reach out to us. Again, follow us on Instagram, Patreon. We got to get you guys on Patreon. Make sure you support the show. Like I said, it starts at $5 a month. It's a cup of coffee once a month. Buy us that, and then if you want to spend more, you can become the warrior, which is $10, and then $20, the king and queens level.
We're archiving Armenian history.
Yeah,
this
takes a lot of time.
Yeah, we're trying
research and everything.
We hope
that we're
you
doing.
like it and appreciate it.
All your donations are not coming for us. It's for us to be able to do a lot more.
Yeah.
Besides that, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share with your friends, order the sculptures, go to medherosner.com, and order your favorite sculpture, Andronic, and we have another one coming up in about 2 weeks. We'll announce as well.
Yeah, we'll be done.
Besides that, anything else you want to mention?
No.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. As we always say, respect one another, love one another. And until the next episode, take care of yourselves.